I got onto some kind of loop. That just like jolted me. All right, everybody, how are you guys doing? Okay. So, long day today. I've got website problems again. You know, I think the whole technology thing. You know, I came up with a new concept. Well, it's not a new concept, but I came up with a way of looking at how technology people do things, right? Because we know when it comes to pricing, when it comes to value and pricing and stuff like that, before the internet, before technology, before computers, you could offer more, right? More of something, right? And if you offered more, you would get more, right? And I guess it's not just computer stuff, but I recognize this thing called negative value, right? And the way the computer people make money off of you is they give you something with value taken away. They give you something with value taken away for free, like software or an app that doesn't have all the features. They could have given you all the features, right? But they're giving you instead something that has negative value. It's incomplete. And the only way you're going to be able to get the whole thing is to pay them money. Really, you know what it's like? It's like those drug dealers that give you a just a little bit of drugs, just enough to get you hooked, right? Anyway, so yes, I've been having trouble with the website. Actually, it's trouble that's been there all along. It's just I only got validated on Google for the first time, like in forever, and got a notice today about all the errors that are on El Tigredo. And I've been spending like all this time trying to figure out how to fix this. Basically, the theme I'm using, it has some sections where the fonts are too small, so I'm having to dig into the CSS and all that stuff. Anyway, let's get to the first question. ACAC asked, by the way, welcome back, ACAC. It's nice to see you again. That's 3 weeks in a row, isn't it? Thanks for coming out. I'm not going to be able to play my trumpet for about 2 days. Should I practice the mouthpiece instead of doing nothing at all? Okay, that's a good question. I teach my students what I call wholesome musical priorities. Now, when you say you're not able to play your trumpet, usually when someone says that, it's either a family event, like your family is going to a funeral or a wedding or something like that, and you can't take your trumpet because either you're going to be flying and there's not enough room, or there's family and they don't want you practicing where the family is. stuff like that. Okay? Or people say this when they're sick, like, for example, getting wisdom teeth pulled out or something. And the dentist doesn't want you to, um, you know, play for 2 days, which actually wisdom teeth, it should be more like 2 weeks. And here's how I feel about that. First of all, talking about the wholesome musical priorities, right? The first thing that should come, the number one thing in your life should be, and I'm always very careful about the way I say this because I think it's true no matter what religion you believe in, and I think it's even true if you don't believe in any religion at all. Okay? Whatever you believe, whatever your faith is, that should be the first thing in your life. The most important thing in your life should be what you believe. I've actually said here on one of these, and I truly believe this. I tell people that I don't care what you believe. I think beliefs are wasted brain cells if you don't actually live according to your belief. I'll repeat that. Your beliefs are wasted brain cells until, or for as long as, for as long as you don't live according to what you believe, wasted brain cells. Until you start living according to what you believe, wasted brain cells. Okay, I hope I made that clear. So, very first thing. Now, some people have said, well, Mr. Lewis, what if someone has some weird, bizarre belief that just isn't true or whatever, right? Well, then I say all the more, right? Because that's the best way to find out if you've got like a messed up belief, right? Put it into action and see what happens. So that's number one. Number two is your health. And this wasn't on the list originally. Okay, this was not on the list originally, but someone came in after I had already started teaching this stuff. Someone came into their lesson and said, Mr. Lewis, I'm so sorry I didn't practice this week. I had the flu. And I'm like, don't practice when you have the flu. Okay, and so you don't have to be sorry when you come into the lesson. You don't have to be sorry for not practicing if you had the flu, or if you got your wisdom teeth out, or if, something like that. Okay, so first is your, whatever your belief is, your faith. Second is your health. Third is your family. Okay, so for example, and each one of these, you could do examples like this. I didn't give examples of the first two, but the example of the third one is easy. Let's say you choose to practice each day instead of doing whatever chores your parents have set out for you. Or if you're an adult, you choose to practice every day instead of fixing the sink or fixing the garage door or whatever needs to be done, or giving time to your children or whatever, right? If you choose to do those things instead of, and if you choose to practice instead of doing those things, and then here we're getting to the point here, is if you're doing a family function, that counts, right? So I do not believe, so like if you go to a funeral, go to a wedding, you don't take your horn, you don't practice the mouthpiece. The only time you would ever do that is if there is some sort of emergency right after you get back, like some huge performance. And the way I see this is if you got yourself into a situation where a family event was going to cause you to do badly on a performance, then you didn't prepare for that performance properly. Okay? So this is how I see the priorities. So third is your family. If your family's going on vacation, if your family has to go to a wedding or a funeral, or if it's your parents that are going off to do something and they're leaving you at home and you have to take care of the siblings or whatever, all of that stuff comes before your trumpet. And then after that comes work or school. Now, if you have music as a class or if you are a musician, professional musician, this is where your music comes in, except if we say, okay, well, now I get to, so even if you are a professional musician, you don't get to practice instead of doing the business, right? So in that sense, yes. So the trumpet, if that's your business, then you need to have good chops and stuff like that. But if you're not making the phone calls that have to be made, if you're not, like today, I put all that time into my website. If you're not putting your time into the website and stuff like that, you've got your priorities messed up. Music is fifth on the list of priorities. Number 5. Now, here's the weird thing, right? Because I think sometimes when I teach this, I think sometimes people think what I'm saying is, thou shalt suffer before you play your music, right? And that's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm teaching is that when you do your priorities, when you get your priorities right, your music gets better. See, I'm a trumpet teacher. I'm not a preacher. Okay? This is not me preaching, you better be a better person or else. This is not that at all. My job is to teach trumpet, right? My job is to teach trumpet. This is how you become a better trumpet player. You get your priorities right. And it's amazing how it works. It's just amazing. Because you know what? The world tells us, society tells us that we can only be successful at something if we treat it like a god, right? That's what society tells us. We have to give, we have all of our heart, all of our soul, all of our effort, all of our elbow grease, all of our time, or else we won't be successful. And that's not true at all. In fact, the most ambitious students, just talking about trumpet, right? It's true in other areas of life. The most ambitious students are often the ones who fail the most disastrously. I don't know if that's a word, but it sounded good. Okay? Often it's the most ambitious students without drive, and they just want it so bad. And they put trumpet. Because what are we saying, really? I mean, last week I talked about this a little bit towards the end, right? What are we saying when we do that? When trumpet is the most important thing in our lives, we're saying trumpet is a god to us. Last week I referred to as trumpet worship. I consider that trumpet worship. So no, for whatever reason, now maybe I don't know what reason it is, but I have not heard a reason yet that students have had that they come in here and I say in here, I'm talking about my lesson studio, right? Come into the lesson and say, I'm not allowed to practice. It's never been for a bad reason. If you look at life with those priorities, your belief at the top, your health. Now, some people ask me, why is health? Well, because that's kind of selfish, right? If I put my health above family. And indeed, it's possible to put health unhealthily above family, right? It's possible to get that part wrong, okay? Because there are some people that are so nuts about health, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about taking care of yourself so that you can be there for your family. I'm talking about health in a practical sense, not in a egotistic sense, where you're like just in love with your body or whatever, right? I'm talking about health in a practical sense. So it is possible to get that wrong. But generally speaking, your faith first, your health second, and your family next, your school or work, and then the music. And I promise you, you get that right. And see, that's the thing. That's when you live according to those priorities, it's liberating. It frees you. It breaks the bonds. It breaks you out of bondage to the trumpet. And when that happens, what it does to your music is it makes you free to express yourself. You're not tied to any. You're not tied to any dogma that way. Um, the more I teach these priorities, the more expressive my trumpet playing becomes. The easier it is for me to turn down a gig that I shouldn't be playing. The easier it is for me to make good decisions, not just business decisions, like how much to charge and stuff like that. Not just that, but also decisions about what should I practice. I mean, think about just that. Think about how this affects how you're going to practice. Because if the reason you're going to practice is so that you can worship the trumpet god. And how do you worship the trumpet god is by, it's kind of complicated, right? The way it works is you worship the trumpet god so that other people can worship you. It's real sick, really. It's I and when I say sick, and I have that like disgust in my face, you know what that is? I'm thinking about the way it was for me, right? I'm not saying you're sick. I'm saying I can remember what that was like. I can remember what life was like back when I was, um, I don't think I was never not Christian, right? I don't want to say that. But even as Christians, sometimes we get like sidetracked with other gods. And I have to admit that at one point in my career, that's how I was treating trumpet. And it's a dead end street. When I talk about this, and this is eventually going to be one of my books, right? When I talk about this, I like to bring up what people say about there's stories, legendary stories about violinists and guitar players that have sold their soul to the devil, right? But the way the legend goes is that you sell your soul to the devil, and now you're like this phenomenal musician. But in reality, you sell your soul to the devil, and he's a liar. He's a cheat and he's a liar. He'll tell you anything to get you to sell him what he wants. And then you're his slave. And you don't get anything that he promised you. I'm talking figuratively, right? Sort of. You know, those movies I think are mostly symbolic. So that's why I'm saying, you know, if we were talking about a movie that was more like reality, those movies where they or a novel or legendary folklore or whatever, right? The actual real story would be the dude sold his soul to the devil and spent the rest of his life miserable because he couldn't play his instrument. That's reality. That's reality. You want to have a great life with music in it, you get your priorities right. You have to get your priorities right. Okay? This is a very important thing. And so with my students, you should see it. I've had students that come in and sometimes they're so caught up in the music worship, trumpet worship. And it can take sometimes, because this is not something that you just fix overnight. It doesn't work like that. So we'll talk about this stuff in the lesson. A lot of times, the source of the problems that they're having, it could be embouchure problems, it could be style problems, it could be practice technique problems. Oftentimes, the source of those problems is the fact that they got these priorities mixed up and that they are so overly ambitious to play the trumpet. Now, you could say, like I'm saying, sold their soul to the devil. That's not a nice thing to say about your students, right? So I would never say it in that context, okay? I would never, ever, ever say that. That would not be nice, okay? Um, but the nicer way to say it is that they've got their priorities really, really messed up, okay? You know, I remember I have one of my best students right now got flooded by Harvey, and almost her whole first year with me, she had very limited practice time because she wasn't living in her own house. You know, when your family is going through something big like that, trumpet is not a priority. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes we talk about health, and I know I'm going on about this. Sometimes we talk about health being improved by playing the trumpet, right? So that would make trumpet second priority. And that's actually true sometimes. If the one thing you need right now is to get you out of the gutter, then by all means, pick up the horn and play something. That's not practice, though. Well, maybe practicing. Okay, I could see if it's actually practicing that makes you feel better, then yes, go ahead and practice. But that's not usually how it works. What usually happens is that people feel better when they're playing music. So you pick up some music, right? And you play through it. And play this when it's like that. Play through the stuff you like the most, right? It's like medicine. But if you're gonna do 4 hours of that, then you got that whole thing out of whack, right? So it's not. That's why I'm gonna write a book, right? Because it's not all that straightforward. If playing music is part of what you do for your health, then it's a little complicated. That's why I've got to write a book about it. because it's not something I could explain in complete detail in one question answer session. But yes, I seriously believe, and not just believe, I know, because I've seen it with, look, I mean, just using that one student as an example. She progressed during that time. I mean, think about it. Your family's been flooded out of your house. The whole house is gutted. Everything that you owned, maybe you salvaged some of it, but most of it had to be thrown away. And, you know, music is not, I tell people all the time, you cannot separate the music from the people. Music is a cultural art form. It's not science. Okay? It bothers me when people say music. It's not science. The theory is actually more language. The theory is actually, music theory is actually more language oriented than it is science oriented. Everything in music theory means something. It might mean different things to different people, but when you hear that chord, it does something to you. When you hear that scale, that does something to you. Okay? So my point is that at every level and every aspect of music, it's cultural. It's about me and you having what if it's just a short performance, then we're having a short relationship. And the music is the idiom of communication. Okay? Music is an idiom, a medium, not idiom, a medium of communication. That is the essence of what music is. Communication from one person to the next. That is the essence of what it is. When you get that part right, which is what my musical priorities is all about, when you get that part right, the music benefits. The music gets better because now you're not just playing notes. Okay? I get excited about this, right? Right? This is something I am very often passionate about something that I speak about. I'm a thinker, right? And I like tinkering with ideas. I love it. I love thinking through stuff. And very most of the time it is completely logical and practical. Good old German. I'm part German, right? Good old German sensibilities, right? But something like this, because what I'm teaching now, what I'm sharing with you right now is life changing. If you get these priorities right, your music is unleashed. You get these priorities right, and all the shackles come off. And you're free. Free to express yourself, free to I love that the lyrics in that one Paul Simon tune. Oh, now I can't remember. Something about give her the wings to fly through harmony and she won't bother you anymore. A lot of his tunes are nonsense lyrics, right? Well, at least they sound to me like nonsense. But that lyric always stood out to me. I don't listen to a lot of pop music. In fact, the only time I listen to that album is when I'm cleaning if and that's rarely, right? But I keep there's times when I'm like doing house chores and I just want to have that like that Paul Simon behind me and pushing me on. And yeah, give her the wings to fly through harmony, and she won't bother you anymore. And that's what I think about when I'm teaching this stuff. If you are shackled by music, you can't fly. So anyway, I know that was a very deep and long. How long have we been? 31 minutes. Wow. 31 minutes answering one question. But I hope that answers your question. Now, do we have any other questions? It's like I was probably so like excited and serious and I scared all the questions away. Now people are like, oh no, if I ask a question, he's gonna like go off on me. Any other questions? That was a good question. I don't believe in practicing all the time. Really. I don't believe in practicing all the time. So, and you know what? If this is how this kind of social stuff works, right? This is how the social stuff works. If you are somebody that actually really, really, really wants to worship the trumpet god, and I don't mean you, AC, I'm talking to everybody, okay? If you're the kind of person that really wants to worship the trumpet god, and you come to my YouTube channel and you hear the way I talk, you're not going to like it. Okay? You're not going to like what I have to say, and you're going to move on. You're going to watch something else. You're going to listen to someone else's advice. You'll go to the guys who are trumpet god, do worship the trumpet god, and they'll tell you all about better ways to worship the trumpet god. Okay? That's how this works. This is not, I think in terms of my response, what I get from the students, I think about 75, not the student, I shouldn't say students, people online. About 75% of the people I talk to about this stuff, and maybe because I put faith first, right? Maybe that turns a lot of people off. But they roll their eyes because I really think it's because they really want to put trumpet first in their lives. They really have this, and you can't talk them out of that, Santo Domingo. Hi, Mr. Lewis. Is there any way to make a trumpet sound similar to a flugelhorn? Yes, there is. Yes, there is. You get a much deeper mouthpiece. Now, if you don't have a deeper mouthpiece, you could just, so that's the easy answer, right? Change your mouthpiece. Now, I tried to do that kind of thing when I was in college. And I don't think it's as simple as playing big, right? That's what we did. We tried to play big. And, I guess it depends on the horn that you're playing too. Some horns are easier to manipulate. There's a lot of people that say, I saw this the other day. Where did I? Oh, it was on a discussion group. And someone was saying that they didn't like something or they did like something because it didn't slot so well. Well, and slotting is a funny thing, right? I actually don't like a lot of slotting because there's stuff I want to do with the note. If it slots too well, you can't do anything with the note. That's great, right? That's great if you're on a unskilled, and I'm not saying that everybody likes a horn that slots is unskilled. Don't flip that around and say something I'm not saying. But if you are a unskilled lead player, it's great to have a trumpet that really, really slots, because now you're not going to crack as many notes. It's going to be easier to hit the note and have a lot more power, because the horn just won't go to another note. But there's also disadvantages to that too. And one of those disadvantages is that you can't play with the sound, right? So if you want to have a flugelhorn sound on a trumpet, you kind of, in general, you kind of have to play on the bottom side of the horn, right? Now, let me tell you this. Why don't I just pick up my horn and demonstrate it? Because this kind of microphone, you would never hear it. This is one of the problems with Skype lessons, right? And now I teach Skype lessons, and I think they're a good thing. But there are limitations. I mean, there's the technology isn't where it needs to be yet. And if you're just using a webcam like this, then you're not getting the true tone. I remember one of those trumpet challenges. I'm not a real big fan of the trumpet challenge stuff, right? Because it's just a bunch of trumpet players showing off. But I remember one of them, and the requirement was from the trumpet challenge was to keep it real. Don't use a real microphone. Use your phone. Oh my. That's not real. Okay? That's not real at all. There's technology built into the phone to make it favor vocal sounds. And the trumpet messes with all that. So there's nothing real about recording on your phone. That's like the worst thing. If you want to use that as an example, that's the worst thing. To my knowledge, they don't have yet technology that says, oh, this is a voice, this is music. And change the technology so that when music is playing, that it records music properly. And when voice is playing, it records voice properly. They don't have that on the phone. And since it is a phone, it's a smartphone, right? It's a smartphone. So it's going to be tweaked for voice, not tweaked for music. So, I know that's a tangent to what we're talking about. So yeah, I wouldn't want to demonstrate that, because you wouldn't hear it anyway. But yes, in general, you can kind of get a flugelhorn sound. Now, if your question pertains to something you have to play in an ensemble, now that's something else, right? If we're talking about this just as something fun to do, that's one thing. If this is something that you have to do, you need it says flugelhorn on the part, you don't have a flugelhorn, all you have is a trumpet. Then what you do is put a bag over your bell. I made a bag out of felt. Let me see. I think it's in my gig bag. I'll be right back. I told you guys last time about my bag. I think it was last time. At the bottom of my mute bag, something that I hardly ever use, and it might not be in here. We'll see. Because I hardly ever use it, like I said. I don't think it's in here. Oh, wait, I think I felt it. Well, that's going to make me, I'm embarrassed now. Okay, let me tell you about this. I don't drink. Now I don't know why this is in here. Maybe somebody gave me this. And I'm very hesitant to even show this. Okay, I don't drink. I don't. And I've talked about this. I think one other time in one of these chats. When I say I don't drink, I'm saying according to people who drink, I don't drink. I think I average maybe a drink per year. But I shouldn't even be saying that. People laugh at me when I say that, right? So this is a Crown Royale bag. And this is something that the orchestra guys put over their bill. Anyway, and that's a great way, if you have it in your part. I didn't even know that was in my bag. Okay, so let me tell you what I did, because I didn't want Crown Royale stuff. I didn't want to, not that it matters all that much, but I didn't want to be carrying a booze bag in my bag, right? So I made a long, long time ago from felt that I bought at a craft store, and I just sewed it. I put it, so that it was round and basically this size, and I would put it over my bell. Basically a homemade mute. But yes, the Crown Royale bag or some other kind of felt bag. I'm kind of embarrassed that this is even in my bag. That can help if it's like I said, if it's in a part and you're not just doing it for the fun of it, then you can put a bag. Alternatively, and this is done quite often, if you use a bucket mute or a hat. So a bucket mute, here's a bucket mute. My bucket mute is very old. It usually has like this mesh right here, and the mesh came out, and now all the stuff comes out. So, but the bucket mute can also give you more of a flugelhorn sound, and it's very common. It's very common to substitute bucket mute with, if you have a flugelhorn and you don't, a flugelhorn part and you don't have a flugelhorn, it's very common to put a bucket mute on there. Okay, that's kind of common. Alternatively, you can use a hat. Now, there is a mute called a hat. But you don't have to use that. You could actually use a hat, right? So, okay. I hope that answers your question. What else? Any other questions? Those were two good questions, Sometimes when we have these, hello, six-sided. Sometimes when we have these chats, I'm like, man, I hope I hope I have anything worth talking about. But those were two very good questions. I enjoyed talking about that. Any other questions? So yeah, you're welcome. So we can I can talk about anything you want to talk about, question wise, anything related to music, composition, jazz improvisation, music business. It's not all just trumpet stuff. We're open to anything related to trumpet within music and business. Okay, I have started an embouchure change with my university's trumpet professor, and I have worked a lot on free lip buzzing. You think this is productive? Yeah, of course, I do. What I do caution people is to not do too much. Okay? Yeah, that happens a lot. He says that his bottom lip is tucked underneath the top lip. So you do the lip buzz so that you get, and you can feel if the air, I'm sure your teacher did this with you. So mine always goes kind of down anyway, but if your air like this, if your lips are like this, and that is one of the problems with lip buzz, right? You can do it, if you tuck your lip underneath, you can do it wrong like that. But you can tell if you put your hand right here and feel the air come right down across your chin, now you know you're doing it wrong. So we pull our jaw down, put the lips together, and try to get the air going straightforward as we can. So yes, I do believe that lip buzz is productive. Now, I don't believe that everybody should be doing lip buzz. In the case of so let me be very clear about this. I was answering your question. I'm not saying lip buzz is good for everybody. I'm saying that if you're making an embouchure change, especially for that reason, then lip buzz is good for you. It's good for doing what it is you're trying to do. Not everybody should be doing lip buzz. It depends on what kind of embouchure they have. But that's what I'm saying, right? You're trying to change your embouchure, so yes, it's a good thing. But there's some people who are not trying to change their embouchure, and if they do lip buzz, it'll mess them up. Okay, so just want to be clear about that. Any other questions? It's great to see you guys. Yes. He says, I like the idea that you should feel the air if your hand is out in front of you. So, I used to try to, not with the lip buzz, but I used to try to blow strings of, so I would put a string over my underneath my nose and try to blow the string out. The longer the string is, the harder it is to do that. You can't really do that with the lip buzz because there's not enough air coming out of the lips once you start buzzing. You know that the buzz is very controversial. You'll find a lot of people online who say that thou shalt not do lip buzz, right? And I don't fall in that camp. In fact, I don't fall in the other camp either. I'm somewhere in the middle between the two. Because there are a lot of people that do way, way, way too much lip buzz. And we don't want that either. I don't use lip buzz for building strength. That's where I draw the line. If that's what you're doing is to build strength, then I'm not in favor of that. Not that it doesn't build strength. So I'm talking about why are you doing it? If you're doing it to build strength, then that's a problem because it will prevent you from doing other stuff to build strength, which is more important than that. Okay? I have found that the online trumpet advice is a lot of the time very opinionated, which isn't too helpful for people looking for legitimate advice. That is the comment of the day. Okay. You know, I'm not doing nearly as much Facebook as I used to. Uh, you get on there and you see, and what gets me about these things, right, is they have the same advice for every single problem, right? The ones who say do more long tones, you say I need to work on my range. They say do more long tones. You say I need to get a better sound. Do more long tones. Um, I keep rushing on this song. Do more long tones, right? And it's like that's like they're not even thinking. Oh, and the other part of that bothers me, right? They'll tell you that when you've only told them you write, you're asking for help, right? And you write a 5-word sentence, right? You write 5-word sentence, and from that 5 words that you typed, they now know enough to tell you that you need to practice long tones. Or there's a bunch of these, right? Some of them will say it's the air. Air is the answer. You need more air. I'm having trouble playing soft. You need more air. I'm having trouble playing high. You need more air. I'm having trouble playing fast. You need more air. Hi, Anthony. Great to see you again. So yes, that kind of advice, I think, and you know what? I think what happens, at least on YouTube, I mean, not YouTube, Facebook, there's so many trumpet teachers that are. It's the same thing as what I was saying about the trumpet worship. You know, they are so eager to prove themselves. That's the impression I get. They're so eager to prove themselves, and they get on there, and I don't know, man. It's it's very bothersome for me to see that. It's unsettling. So you know, so much of what happens to us is personal, and this is I'm going to say it one more time. I already said it once today on another question. You cannot separate the music from the people. It's not science. Okay? It's all. So most of what happens on the trumpet, most of what happens, even the physical stuff, like whether you can play high or whether you get a good sound or any of that stuff, is physical manifestations of mental stuff. It's not even a physical problem. We wanna do that. We wanna fix that stuff like it's mathematical or scientific, like fixing a car or something. But in terms of music, we don't function like a car. Music is a language. Music works just like a language. So when we try to give advice and we don't know anything about that person except for the 5 words that they put in their sentence, what kind of advice are we going to give them? That's why most of that stuff I don't even on Facebook, I don't even answer those. What are you going to say? I'm having trouble playing high notes. That doesn't tell us anything about where you're at. Right? What can I do about my high notes? What can I do to play faster? Mr. Lewis, do you know where the jazz trumpet sound comes from? Because in my opinion, it sounds very different from the way trumpet is played in classical music. Well, that's all tied into what I'm saying. it sounds different because the people who are playing the music hear the music differently. I got a new article and a new video coming up that I'm working on. It won't be out for like maybe a month or two. Talking about playing in tune. Now, this playing in tune, people start saying, "Well, it's mathematical, it's scientific." No, the study of frequency is mathematical. The study of harmonics and stuff like that is mathematical. Playing in tune is not mathematical. Because when you're actually playing, you don't know what the science is. All you know is what it sounds like. Right? Okay? So even intonation is a cultural thing. Even intonation. So everything, so that jazz trumpet sound comes from, you asked me where it comes from. The jazz trumpet sound comes from that culture. End of story. Okay? You want to know where the jazz trumpet sound comes from? It comes from that culture, those people. And when I say those, I include myself. Okay? I'm part of that culture. All right? You get the jazz sound from the jazz people. You get the classical sound from the classical people. You cannot, I'm going to say it over and over and over again, you cannot separate the music from the people. Okay? It's not a mechanical thing. There are mechanics involved, but the mechanics are controlled by your mind, and your mind is part of this social thing that happens. Music is a social thing. Anthony asks, Eddie, you have your 3 levels of rest video seems to help me get most of my practice done. That's wonderful. I like to hear that. Congratulations, Anthony. I love to hear that. I love to hear that. You can practice. I used to practice 1 day a week on Tuesdays. I don't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. But I used to practice at least 8 hours a day only on Tuesdays. The other days were more like 4. But on Tuesdays I would practice. This was all through the 90s and then into the new millennium. I would practice 8 hours on a Tuesday and not be tired at the end of it. And the only way that would work is with this 3 levels of resting that you're talking about. And that's why, by the way, if I go on a gig and do a gig, I normally don't get tired. If you're practicing 8 hours a day, 8 hours on Tuesdays once a week, there's no gig that's going to give you a problem. You just don't get tired. Now, there are some songs. If I'm playing with a really loud band with bad miking, sometimes I'll pull up a song that's high that you have to play loud, and just the physical effort that you have to put into it. It doesn't make you tired here, it just makes you tired overall. But a lot of the guys that hire me, this was more true before than it is now. Not because I don't have the chops anymore, but because the scene has changed. I hate to say it. Now, the guys I play with, I'm not saying they fall in this category, but a lot of the stuff out there, what people value today is not what people used to value 15 years ago even, right? So in terms of what they want from a professional trumpet player, they would rather you can dance, right? They would rather you can dance than for you to be a great player. So that's what I mean. I mean, it's not so much that that my chops have gone down. It's just they don't push me. You don't. There are no more gigs anymore that push your chops anymore. Everyone's looking for the visual. At least that's my experience. So so yeah, things are different now. Not complaining. You know, everything works the way it does for a reason. I truly believe that. God makes all things work. I forget the rest of the verse. God makes all things work for those. I don't remember I shouldn't be trying to quote scripture. I forget the exact quote. Any more questions? Yeah, Anthony, I'm real glad to hear that. I'm real glad to hear that. And for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, there is a video that I have. If you put Eddie Lewis, 3 Levels of Rest, where I talk about um, the importance of resting. And we talk about resting at 3 different time levels. And you have to do all 3 of them. And if you do all 3 of them, you can practice more. That's how it works. So yeah, if you haven't seen that video, I strongly encourage you to go see that video. Uh, Eddie Lewis, 3 Levels of Rest. You type that into the search, it should give you the video. Any other questions? These are good questions today. These are good questions. What else? We're at the hour mark. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to say. If uh, I'll give you guys like 10 more seconds, and then we'll just, if I don't have another question, we'll shut it down. But there were good questions today. All right, looks like we're about to close it down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Well, good. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Next week, remember, we don't have one next week. I'm at the rodeo. Oh, and that reminds me, I got to send an invoice. I forgot about that. Okay, so very good. See you guys next week. Thank you for hanging out. Um, have a great 2 weeks. We'll see you next time. Bye. There we go.